Hi everybody. Brought my passport. I've come down from Hackney. We heard from Dorothy. The solutions exist. What I bring from my experience is a way of bringing things into being. And here is someone who's going to bring something into being for me. How about this for a segue? Thank you so much. Thank you so much. So, permaculture, currencies, and consent. How many of you heard of permaculture? Well, that's encouraging. So, I have a diploma in applied permaculture design. The Permaculture Association of Britain is a national charity, which is a worldwide reputation in permaculture, and I chair the board of trustees of the Permaculture Association of Britain. So I know a little bit about permaculture. So we'll start with a little bit of permaculture design. Now, this is a vision of the future. How do we actually go about design? Because permaculture is how do we learn, how do we practice, how can we actually design things? Now, that's very futuristic. Permaculture is an interesting discipline because it's based on ethics and principles. Ethics. Real core ethics. Every permaculture design, every decision is based on the ethics of earth care to your left, people care to your right in the room, and fair shares, an equalisation of the redistribution of assets and wealth and well-being. So every decision has to really demonstrate earth care, fair share, and people care. And in this famous circle are all the principles that we use when we design. So we're always obtaining a yield, producing no waste. All of these are principles which we base our designs on. So permaculture design is all about designing for real, which takes us from our last speaker in how we actually do it. And David Holmgren was a co-founder of permaculture, and this is a process where we look at all the elements that bring a design into being and sustain it, and we just keep going round and round in an adaptive design to bring it into being. Permaculture, nature-based solutions. That is a permaculture design. It doesn't look like it, but it is. Someone's actually designed that. But when it gets improved, raised beds, more efficiency, more access, more life, more abundance, and eventually this is the design from someone in the permaculture movement called Patrick Whitefield. He's a leading exponent of what is forest gardening, and you can just imagine the abundance in that, I don't know, half an acre of land, abundant yield of highly nutritious local food compared to the rolling fields for your horses. When I get on the train and go out to London now, there are no cows, there's just nothing, or the occasional horse, because that's what the billionaires keep for their kids. What I love about this particular photograph is this, look, a little play area. Seeing the actual design, everything's thought of, so when families come along for a visit, the kids have got somewhere to play. So it's, but this is all nature, this is this side of the Ravensbrook, isn't it? Is it Ravensbrook? Ravensbourne. Now how far does the Ravensbourne, how far is it tidal? Up to here.
The Thames, it goes into the Thames.
Yes, but it's tidal from the Thames. It will be tidal. You know that salt water being lighter than ordinary water. So when the tide comes on the Thames, it will ride up further up the Ravensbourne. And we know what's happened to the Thames, don't we? Yeah. It is an open sewer. It is. So have you actually thought locally, you live here, how far at high tides is it actually coming up your local creek? Yeah. So what could we do in the city? You know, the city, the dense urban dwelling environment. how can we green the city? So how can permaculture design, which is rooted, why is it called permaculture? It's called permaculture because it was created in the 80s by an Australian who went walkabout. It's an indigenous, an academic actually, John, who actually went walkabout and created the ethics and principles, the foundations of permaculture. But there was no word sustainable. There was nothing to describe the idea that you're designing for 7 generations to come. So permanent agriculture was the closest he could come. A permanent agriculture, a permanent system whereby we could feed ourselves and look after all the animals in the world, look after nature. So that's the word, origin of the word permaculture. Oh, I missed a slide. Oh, how do we get from, you saw, now how do you get to this? This is a community garden that I created on a social housing estate in Hackney. And it's on a meanwhile space, so it's a temporary. So it's now actually this year had to be dismantled. Working with local residents, having events locally, and training. And what we've got here, this what you can see there, is a wooden frame which is exactly the same as a balcony on an adjacent tower block. So we're trying to encourage people to grow in balconies. And think about permaculture, we design at scale. So we don't just design broad scale, we also design micro scale. And that's what I can share with you, I can bring to you if you were interested in permaculture design. Now you're talking. This is where we want to be, the vision of the future. How can we get to citywide? How can we get to urban? And I mentioned Bill Mollison, who founded permaculture. He bounced all his ideas off a fellow academic called David Holmgren. And David, a younger man, had a bad time, basically. But when Bill died, David is still with us. And David Holmgren, as it says there, permaculture coordinator, core originator, he's, in the last 2 years, developed this idea of retro-suburbia, because when we're here, we need to do as much care and attention using permaculture design in people's homes, in the household. And that's an example of simple design, simple, low-cost, affordable design that people can actually design and create themselves. And everything is in permaculture is really thought through. Where's the sun come over? Where's the water? Where's the energy? Where's the waste going to go? Where's the simplest place? Where's the shortest route? Everything is carefully designed in a permaculture design. Now, a big problem is the fact that if you measure, and measure is so important, we'll come to that in a minute, how are we going to retrofit the housing stock of a country that 70% of its housing, as over here, was designed with coal fire? You know, heating with coal fire. The whole house is completely not fit for purpose. So, to retrofit, how many of you heard of this idea of retrofitting? You've got an idea. And all this argument about heat pumps being, what's the financial payback. And we're just beginning to learn, aren't we, that solar panels aren't really worth the money. So, and given that, what I like about these houses, as you can see, each one is completely separate. Each one would have to be designed completely separately. He said, look at this plot. Oh, okay. So, and that is the kind of mess that you'd expect to find when you retrofit one room in a house. So the whole retrofitting agenda is something that is a big, expensive item that the whole of this area is likely to be interested in cost saving, in what I would say, how can these houses work together? How can these houses work together? where I'm in Hackney, I'm now developing the concept of net zero neighbourhoods. So people can share their back gardens, not knock the gardens down, but share the same tool base or invite each other to functions. I went knocking on doors, and people who in the Victorian three-storey houses, like at the top, because the flats are let off separately, they said, well, we can't access the garden because we don't have access to the garden. But we'd love to tell the people we like it when the cats run through. We just love what we see, and we'd like to feed back into these gardens. And I spoke to a couple of people in the gardens who said, oh my God, if they want to come down and have a glass of wine with us, that'd be fantastic. So we can actually start to build community. And that's part of it, isn't it? Sort of building community, kind of a community of action. So let's talk on to an action. Community currencies. How many people have heard of community currencies? Oh, wow. Oh. Yes. Well, I lent John a fiver. I brought a few with me, actually, John, but you don't have to dig it out. I know you're hoping to plug it on eBay. So I started a community currency, sorry, John, in 1996 in Hackney, the Hackney Pound. Yeah, the Hackney Pound. You know these local lets schemes? Yeah. So I've been doing it for, 20 years. And there she is. Well, there she was. Those who don't, people know about money. You know what money is?
Paper.
It's paper.
Promise.
Yeah. It's a promise. Any other? It's debt. It's based on debt. It's created through debt. So it doesn't exist. It's created through debt. And what I love about this is this: I promise to pay the bearer on demand the sum of £50 on this particular piece of paper. Do you know what that means? I created a banknote, and I showed John this banknote for Hackney. And I had words on my note, and I went down to the Bank of England, and they took it seriously. They actually read it, the script word for word, and they said you cannot use the word note because in banking regulations that has specific meanings. Because I've written something about the actual note. But if I change those words, then it would have nothing to do with it at all. Nothing to do with them. So that's why that note, there it is, is actually approved, or not disapproved. It's more accurate than approved. All it means is I promise the bearer is that if you take a £50 note into them, they will give you another £50 back. That's all it is. You can take a note back into, you can give them a £5 note, and they'll give you another £5. That's all. That's the limit of their. So it doesn't exist. It's a extractive economy. Money is deeply colonial. I love the fact that colonial is now on the agenda. It's only happened in the last 18 months, hasn't it? I don't know whether you picked up on it. The fact that things are colonial, is actually, this has come from God. This has come from the king. The king has decided there is only one money. Only one. And it suits the purpose of the empire. Simple as that. The whole British Empire is based on this one currency, this one money. So the Bank of America, the Bank of England, they have complete monopoly on money. But there's no reason for that. There's no reason why the Brookmill pound can't come into existence. No reason at all. So there's lots of reasons to launch a local currency. And local currencies have to obey the same economic laws as the national currency. I've done it, I know it. It works. You can have a local currency for the local aspect of trade. So if you're trading with each other, your sort of knitting, singing lessons, babysitting, cat sitting, these kinds of local services, you could charge in local currency, the Brookmill pound. Yeah, and pay people. So you earn your book a pound, and then you can then go out and buy in other services. And what the experience has been that people think of this money as not a payment of a debt, but it's an opportunity to give back. I can give you some of this and buy some services back.
Where do you get them in the first place?
You don't need the money in the first place. You have an electronic account, and you can go overdrawn just like that. Because when you spend, the money goes around us in this room. This is enough people.
Start off with like a tenner.
No, you just start off with nothing.
Did you have to constantly eat in some way?
Yes, the more you spend, which means you go overdrawn, but if it's the faster you spend, someone will come looking to you and say, well, you said you could do some computer design for me. You said you could sort out my electronic wiring. You said you could sort out my, could you help me go fix my car or
We
tell...
did have, in Lewisham, we had anchors
Yes,
at one point. They were called part of the LET scheme.
yes,
And that was active for quite a while.
it was, I remember.
Do you have to be able to give a local service before you can get
It's better that you actually give it back.
No, but how do you get it otherwise?
Well,
Someone
yes,
needs to get one.
you have to offer something
Pay you.
to the community. And what we do is that I went to a workshop on a social housing estate, and this pensioner on the 15th floor of a tower block, she said, well, what can I do? You know what I mean? I'm retired, what can I do? And I said, I remember this, I can't tell you. So I said to her, well, downstairs from you, there's a lot of cars parked. You might look out for one of those cars. I just look out for a car for me. And the bloke said, would you do that? Because I've just bought a new car. And if you would just look out at my car for me, like, 2-3 times a day, I'd be... No, so there's all getting unlocks. There's lots of things people can do, but never get asked to do. And I'm delighted to share.
I think that's based by the same rules as the normal payment back.
Because yes, I did. Because what we had in Hackney is that the early adopters were the complementary health, or the masseurs, which is no bad thing, because you could sort of get a massage or an osteopathic treatment like for half price. But they came in with their at the top rate, like 25 an hour, which isn't too bad. It was in 1996, and they kept putting the prices up, so we got inflation.
And how did they come into existence like Imogen said? Did you just have 100 and you said, okay, I'm going to spend it?
Yeah.
How does it work?
You have an electronic account.
But when you're quantitatively easing, you're saying we're going to add another 100 or 1,000 pounds into this economy, so we're going to give people.
No,
money.
the people when you provide a service to someone else, you create the money.
Where do you get the money to start with? Like the
You
person
start
said
at zero. Your account goes overdrawn, and when you earn the money, your account. So our cap.
Sorry.
So yes, John, you didn't tell me about these people.
So how do you feel about bartering? I'm going to give you a singing lesson.
Bartering is wonderful,
Yeah.
but you spend your whole life organising it. There's nothing wrong with it, but why not just pay someone 20 and they give you 20 and then you can spend the 20 somewhere else?
You can do that with time bank as well, can't you?
You get time as a unit of currency, but how do you sell your second-hand washing machine for how many hours? You can't. Goods and services. It's okay for services, but it's limited. It's just so limited. But you can have a time back as well as a let's. These are the properties of money, I'm told. It's a long list.
Time for another drink.
Yes, and that's what money should focus our attention on relations. And I've just described to you how it's possible using this let's to actually build a relationship. I'm not sure about monkey brain limitations. That's one of John's
So
ideas.
how does this link to crypto then?
How does it link to?
Crypto.
It doesn't link at all to crypto. Cryptocurrency is not a
crypto doesn't even link to crypto.
No, crypto is another world. Don't go there. And encouraging law increasing returns, because when you spend this money, it can't escape from the room. When someone gets the money, all they can do is spend it back with one of us. So the money goes round and round and round, and it just builds and builds and builds. So it's like a permaculture design. And the very first let systems were picked up by Bill Mollison, and they're in the designer's manual from 1984 as one of the, he predicted local currencies would be more popular than they would turn out to be.
How does it fit with taxes?
Right, that is a great question. If you are becoming more successful as a business, and we predict you will, you should pay more tax. So if your profits go up, then you pay more tax. So you actually pay tax. It's taxable income. To a business, the local currency is taxable. So if they make a loss, they can claim it back as tax as well. So luncheon vouchers, some of us are old enough to remember luncheon vouchers. Many people just heard of luncheon vouchers. But luncheon vouchers were taxable. You had to declare it on your income tax returns as a business. So this currency is taxable, and we've spoken to the revenue, and they are aware.
So it's paying inland revenue in like method.
Could you say again, because we all lost it? What was it? Tell me. Yes.
Are you paying inland revenue in method?
No, they won't accept it. They won't. Because people are paying you for the massage, and that goes into your, give it to your accountant, and it's as good as money. So the thing is, spend it straight away. Just keep your balance. And this is what this particular chart. Oops. This is an example of we have an online game, and people pay in the federal currency and the local currency. And you can see that this is each time they do a transaction, they move up and down, plus or minus over time. So time is going this way, and plus and minus that way. So every time they do a transaction, they are moving along this scale. Whereas in local, they're all over. They go massively overdrawn, and then someone will buy something from them, and they go massively into purpose. It's positive. So that's the difference between local and national currencies. Yes, madam.
Sorry to say this, sounds a bit bad, but would you know why, for example, the Bristol pound or the various local monies, attempts of it, would you know why they didn't work?
Yes, I do. So there was the Bristol pound and the Brixton pound, set up by the New Canals Foundation, huge amounts of funding, massively expensive, all the banknotes, really, really expensive. But they weren't a currency because you had to buy them for pounds. You had to buy them for £1, and you got a Brixton pound, which cost maybe 50p to print anyway. So, and then you had the rigmarole of you could take your Brixton pounds back, and they give you cash back. So the credit union wanted to pay for all the services of that. So it wasn't actually, you start with a zero balance, and you could go into commitment, as we call it, not overdrawn commitment. You committed to making your balance back. You had to buy the Brixton pound for cash. So it wasn't, it wasn't a currency. It's just like a cake voucher.
It doesn't have to be actual.
Does that answer your question?
Yes.
I'm afterwards for a drink if you want to know anymore.
Does it have to be physical? Because if you do digital, then the currency kind of like reduces every time you make a purchase.
We would want it to be digital because the paper costs a phenomenal.
So you want it to be, but it would still retain its value from one
Yes.
transaction to the other.
Well,
compared to what it is now.
There's no reason. Well, that's why there are mechanisms to try and ensure that takes place. It's peer pressure. Okay, we're on to Oh, I've got 1 minute left. I might have to ask for it. I might go overdrawn. So who's heard of sociocracy? Wow. Oh my goodness me. Things are looking up. So we have a permaculture designer. We're designing things, lots of things. We have a way that we trade with each other and build our community strength. Our skills base is going up. All the unused skills that a lot of older people have got are brought back into use. Children and families can have their own accounts, and within a family they can actually operate a way of, working out things between them. So we have, and sorry, I must say this about currency, it measures value. It measures value. So it gives us the opportunity to have our own values embedded in the Brookmill pound. Yeah, it doesn't matter about anyone else in the world. What matters in Brookmill, those values can be underpinning the Brookmill pound. And that is fantastic. So, but how do we make decisions as a group, the Sociocratic Circle? How do we as a group make decisions? How can we make decisions, excuse me, that we are all consenting to? God knows, did someone say. And that is the right answer. That's what I said. But it can be done. It can be done. And just simply, and so I've got 3 people in the room who are going to shout at me. Simply, we differentiate, just pull apart policy decisions from operational decisions. Now, I just need to check with you. Do people know the difference between operational and policy? It's just in your mind. Operational are the actual doings. What happens? So in operations, you need someone in charge, and they just make the decisions. You can't have a big meeting and go talk about minutiae, but the policy of how they treat people, how they deal with complaints, how they do things, that policy we can all agree by consent. And that's what these circles here are set up to make the decisions on policy and elect by consent someone to represent them to a general circle where everyone makes the consent decision. So this could be the consent circle of Brookmill. And we all are here from the other sub-circles. So the earlier, I'll ask questions, but I'm going to rattle through, otherwise I'm going to get shouted at. Is that okay? Yep, thank you. So here are the early adopters, and that list won't surprise you. I keep walking away now. Hello. These are the kind of liberal left of early adopting organisations who are looking at this consent-based decision-making process because everyone's bought in, everyone's agreed, everyone's been consulted, everyone's been listened to, everyone feels part of decisions that are being made, the core big decisions. So they're likely to be more enabled, empowered, and involved. I just made that up. So here's just a terrible slide, but a brief timeline which you can't see. But it started a long time ago, 1851. But this man here, look, let's just go about this man here, 2004, an American called John Buck, who I'm a big fan of because he's mentoring me, he's my coach, because I'm on my way to be a sociocratically certified facilitator. John Buck learned Dutch. An American learned Dutch because all these rules of sociocracy, how to embed it across systems, were written in Dutch and were not available in any other language. So he went over and he decoded it, which is fantastic, really. So oops, what have I done?
Oh dear. Switched on. I don't think it's serious.
Oh, thank you.
Was that the last slide?
No, thank you. This Gerard Ensberg, he's the man who did he put the code together. He's got the man who did The Secret. Do you know what he invented in 1951? Unbelievable. Now you've got to give this guy credit. He invented the flat speaker. And if you think the flat speaker is what? The flat speaker is in every mobile phone you've got. Before him, this phone here, all speakers were like a cone, like a pop, you know.
So he was a spook.
Yeah, so he was a pretty bright guy.
Secret Services.
So just a couple of how it works, but you know, it's got some sociocracy. It has some techniques and tricks to kind of make sure that people are represented on different circles. It's got lock-ins as well to ensure that it works. So you end up with these circles, like committee circles. We meet in circles. We wouldn't meet like this. People would meet in a circle with a facilitator. But you set up, this is just an example of, you would set up circles against how an organisation or company or voluntary sector organisation is meeting its objectives. And these are the benefits. It's not the right word, benefits, but this is the core principles, if you like. At its basic, it's all based on consent. But equivalence is massively important. So in meetings that are discussing policy, everyone is equivalent to each other. Everyone's equal. Everyone's voice is heard. So the facilitator will go in rounds, making sure everyone's voice is heard. And sociocracy for schools is something that I'm just beginning to build up an interest in locally where I am. The biggest example of sociocracy in the world, I'm just going to be a couple of minutes and I'm done, is in India. Because in India, all the schools, most of the schools, what started was in a classroom, class would elect a representative from their class to the school. And then all the representatives of the school would represent someone to represent the school. Then all the representatives of the schools in a district would elect someone from their district to represent the district. And it became so popular. It was started by the Catholic Church, which is very odd in India. But this is and the schools are bought into it because behaviour, academic progress, everything improves because the children are part of the school and they feed back on the school to the management of the school. And it built up to the point where in the Indian Parliament, the children have elected a representative to represent children in the national parliament. And it's a massive example. Hundreds of thousands of schools in India are engaging in the sociocratic process in India. So for those who say it doesn't work, if it can work for children in India, they went to the United Nations the week before last, and a child at my local school spoke in a breakout room, United Nations, talking about SDGs, and she was talking about no poverty. What children want to see to impact on poverty. And it's so amazing to hear children say, this is what we think, this is what we're doing, we don't know what you adults are doing, but this is what we think should be doing. And it's taken seriously.